KOCT, its board of directors, staff, and the city of Oceanside do not support nor promote any candidates. We provide the following program as a public service for voters. All candidates have been invited to participate in this program, but not all were able to or chose to do so.
Good afternoon and welcome to this special edition of Journalist Roundtable. My name is Kent Davy. I'm joined today by Alison St. John, and we're here to discuss the Oceanside mayoral race with 8 of the 12 candidates that are listed on your ballot. With us today are Jack Feller, Esther Sanchez, Rocky Chavez, Louis URIDEL, Rob Howard, Ruben Major, FABIO MARCHI, Fernando GARCIA. Not able to attend with us today are Perry Alvarez, Christopher Rodriguez, and Alvin McGee. We're going to start this afternoon with 30-second opening statements, and we'll finish with 30-second closing statements. We've asked each of the participants to limit their answers to questions to 30 seconds each. So let's start with opening statements. Lou?
The number one question people ask me is, why are you running for mayor for Oceanside? If there's one thing this pandemic has exposed, it's the utter lackluster leadership from the federal level, the state level, and local levels. We need more leaders. Oceanside has had issues with the homeless, with our small business development, and crime. And these aren't new issues. These aren't things that just popped up over the last few years. These things have been going on for a long time. So as mayor for Oceanside, I'm going to remember who elected me. I work for you, and that's something that politicians have forgotten. And that's what I'm going to do.
Fabio.
Hi, my name is Fabio Marchi. Sorry for not having the long hair anymore. That's what you get when you got 60, but you get experience. And that's what I'm planning to run for mayor in Oceanside. Thank you to the Veteran Association. By the way, my father-in-law is going to be 102 years old, veteran. He's cruising the whole United States, and he always told me, Fabio, do what is best for you, but you need to help the community. And without the veterans, will be nothing today. So I'm an engineer, a contractor, real estate broker, born in Argentina under dictatorship. My Italian and Spanish background make me a cultural understanding on society.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Rocky.
you.
Yes, my name's Rocky Chavez, and I'm running for mayor. But before I talk about myself, I'd like to thank KOCT. You know, this is our community TV channel, and if you really want to find out what's going on in California, go to the website at KOCT. I'm running because as you know, I've been a council member. I've been the Secretary of Veteran Affairs for the state. I've represented you as your assembly member in North County for 6 years. And I look at the city and I know it's time to bring leadership back, to get everybody calm and how we can move forward. As a Marine Colonel, I understand leadership, and I'd be honored to have your vote.
Thank you. Rob.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rob Howard, and I'm a candidate for Oceanside Mayor. I'm a husband, a father, a mentor, chair of my church board, but more than anything else, I'm someone who actually cares about servant leadership. I've spent time after my time in the Navy as a power plant operator where I qualified as a firefighter and an emergency plan director. I've worked with large utilities, and I've also worked with small nonprofits. The education community is one of my favorite places to volunteer. I'm running because I believe it's time to bring those pieces all together and have leaders who actually want to serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Ruben.
Hi, my name's Ruben Major, and I'm running for mayor here at Oceanside. I'm a paramedic by trade and own a paramedic training company. I grew up very poor as a kid. I was actually even homeless from time to time, but I worked hard. I made something out of myself. I have a law degree, a master's in military history, training in counterterrorism. I'm a FEMA certified incident commander. And my wife and I live here with our 3 kids who attend Oceanside schools, and we run an animal rescue together. My 3 top priorities for Oceanside are resolving the homeless crisis, dealing with the COVID-19 issue as a health care provider, and public safety.
Thank you. Fernando.
Hi, everybody. My name is Fernando GARCIA. I'm a retired Marine, a family member, father. I'm a community volunteer, and my priority in working with the city once elected is to work on the homeless situation, try to help those people, create a bridge of trust between the police and the residents they serve, because police are the face of the city. I want to work on the traffic situation that's becoming horrendous here in Oceanside, and with zero ties to developers, big donors, or special interests, I know I can make that happen.
Thank you. Jack?
Thank you. Thank you, KOCT. I've been serving this community, whether as a volunteer through every facet that you can imagine, as a volunteer and a servant as your council member for nearly 20 years. Oceanside's a great place. They've done a lot of work in improving the lives of everybody, and God will bless this place. I thank you for your vote.
Thank you. Esther?
Hi, I'm Councilmember Esther Sanchez, and I'm running to be our next mayor of Oceanside. Born and raised in Oceanside, part of a 5-generation family, our family instilled with us, to us, a strong sense of community and pride in our city. I was able to get a background in planning and also in law, and in the last few years, we've been working really hard to address very critical issues in law enforcement, in public safety, and affordable housing. We need new leadership on the council, and for the mayor's position. We have some very, very critical issues that we need to move on, and we need to move them on now. Thank you.
Thank you all. Alison, would you like to pose the first question?
Sure. So let's start with talking about growth. We know that there's a shortage of housing, and that's one of the reasons that you have to earn over $60,000 to pay down an average price house in Oceanside. The state has said that Oceanside has to build about 5,450 homes in the next 9 years. We're already behind on our quota. So the question is, where are we going to be building these new homes that we need? And Lou, we'll start with you.
Well, we're going to have to build these homes in places where they're going to fit. And lots of people get in debates on whether there should be higher income housing or lower income housing. And I think we need to have a good balance for these houses. So higher income housing is going to bring in more revenue for the city. Lower income housing, not necessarily more affordable, I should say, housing is going to allow people to actually live here. We're already one of the best places to live in terms of cost along the coastal areas in California. So I like to keep it that way.
Thank you, Lou. Fabio?
Well, with the COVID-19, we're going to have a big challenge because we are not going to live in the same world that we did before. So my goal is make the economy to flourish in Oceanside. And you hit the nail with this question because I'm an engineer. I'm a builder. So I will know best what to build, how, and where. So, but I'm a fiscal conservative, so I will let to the private owners to take their own decision because the government does not have to put hands in somebody else or take anybody from the hand to do their jobs. We live in a free country, and this is a capitalist system, so we need to encourage private owners to develop their properties. By the way, the city, I'm going to cut the red tape because the city is so, can I say moronic, doing the control of the building project? Yes.
Thank you.
I'm going to build permits in 1 day, with me, in 1 day, building permits. It's possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Rocky Chavez.
Yes, when you talk about growth, we're really dealing with what we call change. And as you know, change is very difficult. This 5,400 number out there by the state, you know, having served in the state for 8 years, they make all types of objectives. But what we need to do in the city of Oceanside is build where we want to define our community. And one of the advantages we have right now is we have 4 districts. And each of the districts need to come forward by each council member saying, we can have X amount of housing here in my community. That's how you can move this forward in a positive way of change.
Thank you,
That's what I
Rocky.
would do.
Rob?
Yes. That number is a large number, but if you look at the details, it's broken up into specific areas. One of the things that I think would really help us is for the community to lean in on our general plan and make comments. We need to hear from people because we need different types of housing. But it's even more complex than that because the housing is an issue that we can connect to our jobs, and bringing jobs that pay a living wage to Oceanside helps us get there. So we need to plan it out, get the general plan set, but we also have places where we can do infill, higher density housing in specific parts of the city.
Thanks, Rob.
Ruben.
Ruben.
So I think right now our problem is that we're focusing far too much on these sprawl development projects. We definitely need more jobs here in Oceanside and to focus on that for a building. The biggest thing I would say is that we need to listen to the people in the community of Oceanside. That's my biggest frustration, is that I don't feel like our council is doing that. We need to incentivize higher density housing and mixed use. East of the 5, I'd also like to see less developer kickbacks, less corruption, and again, we need to focus more on our community and keeping the people of the city of Oceanside happy.
Thank you. Fernando.
I think before we even talk about shortage of housing, I think we also need to talk about lack of infrastructure. If we don't take in consideration the fact that we want to add more people to our city and not consider the infrastructure, meaning roads, water, electricity. I mean, there's electricity shortages already. So before we even talk about all that, I think we need to start talking about infrastructure first from the city. So we need to bring in whoever we need, the Development Commission and maybe even developers, and start coming up with a better generalized city plan for the future so that we can start tackling this home situation. Because
Thank you. Thank you. And Jack.
Thank you. The infrastructure's here within the city, the internal structure. Outside of the area which is considered sprawl, there is no infrastructure. You need every kind of housing. And the problem that is prevalent in all of this is you can't vote for no housing anywhere. And that's the problem that we have faced in this time, and literally we need to be able to build every type of housing every place.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Esther.
Hi, the question is about housing and how critical housing is, and that's because we have state requirements. But the question also needs to be included in the question has to be jobs. Right now, we have over 76% of our workforce traveling outside of Oceanside, and that's not good for our future. So infill, obviously, higher density in the urban areas, no sprawl. We really need to focus on where services already exist in order to ensure that we continue to be able to provide a certain level of service to our residents. Thank you.
Also on this ballot besides your race is Proposition L, which is the North River Farms project or proposal in the South Mayoral Hills area. We are interested in knowing what your views are, whether you support or oppose the North Prop L and the North River Farms. In addition, if North River Farms passes, does that threaten the city's articulated vision of agritourism in that region of the city? Fabio.
No in River Farms, but we need to be wise. We cannot grow having all dilapidated buildings and a dilapidated infrastructure. As an engineer, as a mayor, contractor, my skill will be improving all the services. Do you know we got water drinking pipes made of asbestos in Oceanside from 1920, and you're drinking that water and give it to your babies? That's a no as a mayor. Okay. On my watch, all the roads, they will be repaved. We want to do the infrastructure, means water. We want to do...
Fabio, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Time goes fast. Roger.
I would like to be more.
I oppose L. And the reason I oppose it is because I believe in the process. You know, this issue came before the Planning Commission twice and it failed. There were some negotiations behind the scenes that eventually went before the council without it going back to the Planning Commission, and then it was voted on it with the majority of the council. You can't do that. That's a history of rancor of Oceanside when you do not have a transparent process. And the other question is, will it affect agritourism? Yes, it will. And I think Oceanside's large enough to have great beaches, agritourism, and different economies.
Okay, thank you. Rob.
Yes, I would vote no on L, and the reason are several. As stated before, the issues around having gone through the process and not passing through the process, because there are some issues around cost of infrastructure. There's issues around fire safety on the east end of the project. So what we need to do is, again, and I'll repeat it several times today, we have an opportunity with our general plan. Let's plan out, because Oceanside is big enough, large enough, and the quality of people are here, we can do well if we have a plan moving forward to make sure everyone is taken care of in our city.
Okay. Ruben?
So my son and I were coming back from the evacuation center at Fallbrook when we saw the flames going from the Lilac fire, and my biggest concern is that how close this particular project site is to where that fire was, and I think most definitely will vote no on L, and I encourage everybody else to do the same. I've spoken to the City Council against this project, as well as collected signatures alongside citizens. So I think definitely vote no on L. Thank you.
Fernando?
No on L, because not just because it's on a part of it is on a flood zone, but because again we go on the fact of infrastructure. That North River Road is a little debt trap, and the developer just wants to develop just a small part of it. That's not a good deal. You're adding 1,000 cars to a very, very small road without any future development on that road or improvements. That's no, it's completely no. And regarding the agritourism, again, you're talking about bringing more people besides the people that are going to be living in those homes. So I'm completely against it until there is a development improvement.
Okay. Jack?
Thank you. I am absolutely in favor of it. 76 acres of that 177 acres is considered still farmland or farm-related use. So there is agritourism within that. It is part of the problem. You can't expect to meet numbers and provide new housing for people if in fact you are not willing to go wherever the people are interested in selling their land or building or changing the use. It is an outstanding area, and it will not provide the necessary infrastructure for the farmers.
Okay, thank you. Esther?
Thank you for the question. I'm asking our Oceanside voters to vote no on Measure L. Measure L is a project called North River Farms, a proposal to build 585 homes on a farm off a country road. This is something that would absolutely destroy agritourism and will lead eventually to all our farms disappearing. There is no infrastructure there. There is no water, sewer hookup. It's all well and septic, and this is something that we call urban sprawl. It would cost a lot to taxpayers of Oceanside to have that built, and would be huge impacts on our tax base. We would have to pay more. Thank you.
Thank you. Alison?
Okay, so let's talk about homelessness, which is a big issue for many of you. We know from the Regional Task Force on the Homeless that there, at last count, were more than 400 people living on the streets. Half of them were sheltered, but half of them were not, and that's probably an undercount. This is one of these problems that is going to face the mayor. Do you know what the city is already doing about homelessness, and what more would you do if elected mayor? Rocky?
I'm ready to answer that, but I think over here he didn't get to answer the previous question.
Yeah, I didn't talk about
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I mean,
We need to go to you.
I kind of blend in over here. I'm kind of camouflaged.
Luke, go ahead and answer the previous question.
Yeah, so fundamentally, it's kind of a horrible plan. I get a vote on it. I just vote no, just because, I mean, they put 2 roundabouts on the end. That's not going to solve anything to do with the traffic on that road, and it already can get bad with people cutting through to Fallbrook, going out to the 76. Got Ruben over here. He's a fire expert. You know, there's fire problems going on with it. Although the one problem I see is those are private property owners that want to sell their property to make money on it, and I would hate to cut into their ability to sell their property for use that they intend to. But as far as Oceanside is concerned, and it got to the point where we can make a vote, I would vote no on L.
I apologize, Lou.
No worries, man.
For skipping it. Alison, you were starting.
And I believe,
I'm up for homelessness.
yes, that's right. Okay.
Let me,
Rocky.
Oceanside is a very caring community. One of the reasons I decided to stay here when I got out of the Marine Corps 20 years ago. What we're doing right now is, I know in Mission San Luis Rey, my parish where I go, Knights of Columbus, and we give food out, you know, Tuesdays and Thursdays. I know Brother Benno's that runs it every day. You know, I know one of the big issues for homelessness is mental health. And as you know, I sit on the Tri-City Board, and we have partnered with the county to open up our mental health facilities again. As you know, it closed 2 years ago. In the city of Oceanside, you know, that lot being talking about police, well, we actually have a hot team with 2 police officers out there doing that. We need to do more because homelessness is complex, and we need to have regional solutions. And so I'm pretty proud of what Oceanside's doing, but we could always do more. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Rob. And the question also includes, do you know what the city is already doing, and what more would you do?
Yes, actually, I serve on the Oceanside Measure X committee, so I know we've actually got counselors working with the hot team now. I believe, and we actually got a grant, which is one of the things that the city is doing, is going out and researching the funding because it is so complex. We need a regional solution for it. We need to work with those organizations that are already working on it. That requires us to actually really study, get the data, work with the people who are already doing it, and fund those programs that are being successful. But we need to work on our housing issues as well, because some people are homeless simply because they just couldn't pay the rent. So it's a very complex area, and go to our website at robhoward4mayor.com. We have an extensive plan on homelessness.
Thank you. Ruben.
So having been homeless before as a kid, this is a very important issue to me. I also helped out as a paramedic, a lot of people who are homeless. I think right now our problem is that we're not obeying the law of the land. Martin versus Boise says that if you're homeless, you get to live in public if there's not enough beds for you. And the problem right now is that we don't have enough shelter beds. We need to make some minor changes to our code in order to deal with this particular issue. I'm an advocate for tiny homes. I believe that we need to move our HOT team to the fire department, EMS, the homeless outreach team, as well as the psychological emergency response team. And I think that we need to be fighting for our fair share of funding from the state and the county, which we really haven't done.
Thank you. Fernando.
Yeah, so since this homelessness is a regional problem, so it requires regional solutions. So I wanted to bring in our neighboring cities of Carlsbad and Vista, because we all know that the homeless, a lot of the homeless community migrate depending on the circumstances and situations, the personal circumstances or situations. So talking about personal circumstances or situations, the homeless outreach team, there should be a lot more making contact with the homeless themselves, because we need to analyze the reason why they're homeless, why they have reached the homeless cycle in the first place, on an individual case-by-case basis, either mental health, substance abuse, runaways, financial burdens, financial troubles, et cetera. So we need to make contact with every single one that wants to be helped, because it should be on a voluntary basis.
Great.
So I want to get everybody together and work on that.
Thank you. Jack.
Thank you. I have some experience with this, as there are 2 homeless outreach teams working right now with social workers. They have literally found out the name of every homeless person they're dealing with. There isn't always a solution for each one they deal with because of federal law, but we do have opportunities with San Diego Rescue Mission and the Bread of Life, who are working together as we speak for a facility just for the homeless that really want the help.
Okay.
There will be many other opportunities coming
Thanks,
forward.
Jack. Yeah. And Esther.
Thank you. The question is, do I know what the city is doing to address our homeless issue? And I think if the council got out of the way of staff, we would have been doing a lot, done a lot more, and would be doing more at this point. Yes, we do have our hot teams, and yes, these are the folks that are out there talking. And this is in the urban area, not in the San Luis Rey river bed. And they are trying to place folks in shelters or places in homes. What we ought to be doing is sheltering our unsheltered. I'm one of the representatives for the homeless outreach, and we need to shelter our unsheltered immediately. Thank you.
Okay. Lou.
Yeah, like Ruben, this kind of strikes me because I was homeless for a little while I lived in Chicago. And it's definitely something we have to talk about. It's a human issue. These are human beings out there. They're not a homeless problem. Each one is an individual person. And so instead of trying to reinvent the wheel to try and solve these problems, we need to use our outreach teams in conjunction with not-for-profit organizations like Build for Zero, which have ended the homeless problem. They've lowered the homeless problem to zero in 27 communities throughout the country. We need to learn from people who have already brought their homeless crisis down and do that and implement those changes here.
Okay, thanks. Fabio.
Well, I'm going to be very simple. I'm going to grade the city with a -F, failure. You need a strong leadership. I'm a doer. I'm a guy that I'm going to go and help the homeless. How am I going to help the homeless? It's not going to be with a magic wand. We need to improve the building process. We can build ADUs. It's an affordable housing that you can build in your garage, but it takes 6 months and tons of money. It is discouraging any homeowner to do that. But if we can accomplish that, we can get a lot of free housing for everyone. And seniors and veterans, they're going to be in the top list. They're so forgetful.
Thank you, Fabio.
Thank you.
Well, the COVID-19 pandemic has eased some traffic issues in North County. Generally, it's reasonable to assume that traffic congestion will return once the pandemic and the virus is over. Does the city need a new traffic circulation plan? What are the greatest needs that we have in terms of traffic congestion? And that starts with you, Ron.
Yes, we need to evaluate it, but also we need to look at the fact that COVID has also shown us that with the right technology, you can work from home. Part of our issue, as stated earlier, is the amount of commuters we have. So not only do we need to study what we're looking at for traffic, that's, again, I'm coming back to the general plan about planning how we want our housing and our businesses and the technology for people to be able to work here, recruiting new businesses, but we want them to be able to be affordable with the housing that comes here. So yes, the traffic is going to be an issue. It's going to ramp back up, but we have an opportunity based on what has happened with COVID to look at the data on how we change our model of work to home.
Okay, thank you. Ruben.
So I think we definitely need to focus on smart transportation, smart mass transportation in select areas. One of the things that I really like that we're doing in other parts of the county and other parts of the country is these electric scooters, these electric bikes. Those are a lot of fun, and I think that would encourage people to get out there and do more things. Walking, we really need to emphasize walking city where we can, so you should be able to walk to any resources that you want to get to in the city, and I think mixed use helps to do that. But I would say that the most important thing here is focusing on what makes our community happy versus what's making outside forces happy and making them more money.
Okay, Fernando.
Yeah, so traffic, California is a car culture state. Everybody likes to have their car and the ability to jump in their car in their garage and just go wherever they want, whenever they want. Unfortunately, right now, there's not enough incentives for people to not get out of that culture of getting on their car, like in other countries, for example, or the big cities of New York. We don't have that infrastructure here yet. I think we need to relook at the traffic plan and study it and come up with better plans. We need to get with North County Transit District and maybe the Development Commission and come up with different traffic traffic plans to flow the traffic once this COVID situation is over with. So, yes, thank you.
Okay, Jack?
Your question's about the circulation element, and yes, the answer is that needs to be handled. This council has closed down a road that is supposed to have run from the back gate all the way to South Carlsbad, 3 lanes, and that is Melrose. They've stopped interchanges that are necessary, promised to industry on the Rancho Del Oro interchange. This city needs to change that mental awareness of what is the need. So yes, absolutely a new circulation element.
Okay, thank you. Esther?
Thank you. The question is about congestion and updating our circulation element. It does need to be updated, but it has to be updated with the idea that we need to create alternative modes of travel. We were promised back in 2000, I believe, that we were going to have shuttles from the Sprinter. If you remember, the Sprinter was promised to ease a lot of our congestion. So what happened to those shuttles that we could have, for example, to Maricosta, to Tri-City Hospital, to the shopping center, to the courthouse? I mean, all of these places have a lot of people going and coming at the same time. So we need to do that and also build a network of Class A bicycle lanes. We really need to get people out of their cars, and it's not by creating more roads.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lou.
Look, it's California. Traffic's gonna suck no matter what we do. So what we do is update our public transportation systems, try to get those more modernized, and try to not build giant monstrosities right on the ocean that are gonna draw all kinds of traffic and screw up stuff driving all around the coast. But we're just gonna have to manage it and try to update our current public transportation system, which is pretty archaic.
Okay. Fabio?
Well, the COVID really, I'm gonna repeat again, is gonna create in us like a big, big inconvenience. And the city has to have a strong leadership to do things. Infrastructure is the major problem. All the roads, they're obsolete. There's one-way lanes to get out of the city in an event of a fire, and I-5 get congested. Good luck. So parking is terrible. Try to go to 4th of July and enjoy with your family. No way to park. So sustainability systems, that's what we need to implement. And the city, it has to be away from stopping the growth of new businesses and new ideas. I want to cut all the red tape. Thank you.
Rocky.
Yes, you're talking about the traffic circulation plan as part of the general plan. And I would open it up again, and I think I'd expand it to not just cars, but also look at bikes and walking. Because as a society, we need to get out and exercise more, and that can help us do that. But as far as cars, the three areas I would focus on as the mayor is the north-south arterials. I'd focus on 76 and 78 off-ramps off the 5. We've been promised that for over 20 years. And I think it's time to be partnering with Camp Pendleton, the access to Camp Pendleton, because the traffic backs up along the 5 and we can make it more efficient.
Okay.
You go.
The cities across the country have been faced with protests sparked first by the George Floyd killing, supporting Black Lives Matter, including protests here in Oceanside. Some have demanded defunding of police departments. Do these protests suggest that Oceanside needs to examine its policing policies, its training, and its resources? Ruben.
So one of the things that I've been doing over the past couple months is I've actually been out there talking to protesters about their concerns live when they're out there. And I think what we've come up with is that this is almost a generational issue. There's a lot of youth that really aren't being listened to on this problem. And I believe that our policies nationwide, this is a nationwide problem, are about 30 years behind the times, and I think we need to catch up. And the ways that we can do that is by increasing our body camera usage, which we have done recently. I'd like to see it moved from keeping the footage from 5 years to perpetual. I'd like to see us, again, move our homeless outreach team and our psychological emergency response team to the professionals, the healthcare professionals that are probably better versed at dealing with these issues, EMS, fire department. And so I think that when we take those steps, we're going to make a huge impact on this particular issue.
Okay, thank you. Fernando.
Yeah, I get a lot of messages on social media, private messages from the Latino community, me being an immigrant. And their number one concern is police interaction. They tell me that they're not very trustworthy of the police, which I respect. I completely support 100%. Law enforcement, I think, as far as their funding, it's about 1/3 of Oceanside's funding, but I think we can better utilize, we can make a little tweaks here and there on the budget. Not defunding, but just better management of the funds. One of the things is, like Mr. Rubin said, Mr. Mayor said, about moving the homeless outreach teams out of the police force into the professionals. I completely agree with that. Number 2 is we need to create a bridge of trust between police and the community so that they can start trusting the police. So through neighborhood walking or things like that, like we used to do.
Okay, thank you. Jack?
The Probably the safest city in the country that had protests was Oceanside. We were uneventful as far as the violence, and the police were stalwart in their effort to help facilitate the protests, get through town, and I think it was an outstanding job. I'm not for any defunding of the police department.
Okay, Esther?
Thank you. I think I'm the only person in this room who has been working on bettering the relationships between our police department and our community. I started when the DA's office and the police department wanted to start doing gang injunctions. And so that's when I got started, and I knew that we had to do things in a positive way. So I did push really hard for community policing. It's something that we've been working on. The difference between our police department back in 2000 and now, we've got a diversified police force. We still have to work on a number of issues, however. Obviously, we're not there yet, but doing it at the grassroots level and having our officers as community police officers and getting that training to address equality issues is something that needs to continue to happen because, and as well as being reflective of the diversity of our community, which is 51% diverse. Thank you.
Lou?
Absolutely, positively, no defund the police. That's a hard no for me. One thing we need to do is we definitely need to make their transparency much better. The Axon body cams are the best cameras that they make for police. That's what we need to implement for them. We also they have coffee with the cop. I'd like to see more community interactions such as barbecue with the cop, have the community come out, and actually have more ride-alongs for people so you can actually understand what it's like to go through this. I went on a ride-along with cops before, and I got shot, blanks, and it was so scary for me to see what they actually go through and what they do. It actually made me have more of appreciation for their job and to know that you can't just change these threats that they go through. They put their lives on the line for us, and I think when the public can see that and know that and experience that, it changes the relations and dynamics.
Okay, Fabio?
Well, I was born in Argentina under dictatorship, so I really know what is abuse of power. So I'm gonna be tough on crime, but I'm gonna make the city accountable for. And it's all in the matter how we allocate the funds, because between the fire department and the police department, we're using $100 million over the $150 million. With that math, we should be a crimeless city. We need to take care of the police officers. Some ones are my friends, and I know and I really respect their job, but they are burdened with so much paperwork, unnecessary tasks, and we need to make an improvement. You need a strong leadership.
Okay, thank you. Rocky?
Well, Black Lives Matter is a good movement. I think it's good within society that we have a serious discussion about our history, so that's why I support it. I also like to recognize, because I wanted to see what was going on, the police did a great job on escorting them through the city, and I think that speaks well of our police. I'm not for defunding the police. I think that's wrong. And the other thing I like to highlight about the police, you know, they do the barbecues. We're not able to do the events, but when we were doing events all over the parks and everything, the police were always there, doing the barbecues, giving out stickers, talking to the kids. The police are good to the city, and we need to continue to move in that direction.
Thank you. Rob?
Yeah, in 2000, when I was president of the local NAACP, one of the things we worked on was getting community involved with policing. That's where we start driving towards understanding what the community policing is about. Even to this day, getting community organizations to interact with the police is important. Why? Because again, that relationship matters. I'm proud to have actually watched not just what the police did to make sure that those protests were done right, but the local young activists who actually worked with them. And we've been having conversations about what does defund mean, how do we do it, and how does government work? There are young people who really want to get engaged, and we need to take this opportunity to take that leadership and get them going forward, because that's how we grow as a city. So yes, we need to evaluate providing services so that those services help make our community better, where we won't need the services of police in a violent way.
Thank you.
Okay.
Alison?
So let's talk about the budget. The COVID-19 pandemic has definitely reduced the city's revenues by millions of dollars. If elected mayor, what cuts would you make in order to keep the balanced budget? Fernando.
Well, first we need to analyze the return on investment on line item budgeting for the entire city. It's an incredible amount of money that we're going to lose due to COVID. We have to, right now I'm not in a position to say what particular thing needs to be defunded until we study the budget to check the return on investment on every single line item within the budget. So I'm all about rebudgeting certain items, certain things, but as far as budget cuts, it's too soon to tell for me. I would like to get with the Economic Development Commission to study what is the impact, the real impact on businesses before we talk about cutting for the budget.
And maybe if I refine the question to say, where can the city be saving money more? Jack?
What was your last statement?
Where could the city be saving money more, bearing in mind that it's lost millions in revenues?
Oceanside is prepared for the rainy day. We've set aside money to pay the PERS debt. We've set aside some extra money. But what we've gained in property tax and gentrification in the areas of the city has increased our property tax so that we aren't as severely affected as the other communities that are only relying on sales and tourism tax. So Oceanside's in a good position as far as cutting. It is really the city manager's job, but they find ways.
Thank you. Esther.
Thank you. What the city manager recommended and what we ended up doing was basically cutting maintenance and operations and putting a hiring freeze. And that's true. Our silver lining, because we are mostly a bedroom community, most of the city's revenue does come from property taxes. So we haven't fared as badly. We didn't even dip into our reserves. What is going to happen going forward? That's completely another question. I guess they're looking at possibly making things being even worse this winter because of the flu. So what I want to say is that we need to address this together as a community, with the business community, our residents, and going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Lou, can you see places where the city needs to tighten its belt?
Well, you see, the thing is, you're talking about tightening the belt, but across the country, 160,000 small businesses are closed permanently, and that's not any different here. My favorite ramen noodle place closed right on Mission Avenue. And as these businesses are closing, there's no businesses moving in. So we need to promote our small business community to try and build that and build more business. You walk down Coast Highway, we have empty buildings. Why? We're a coastal community and we can't even fill units right on Coast Highway. These are issues that need to be addressed, and the small business community needs to grow. That's the backbone and breadbasket of the community. And more money from that is going to bring more money to the city.
Okay. Fabio, what would be your approach?
Well, we're the best country in the world. It's a shame that we need to say we're going to cut the budget. What we're going to do is use our creativity to bring business. My goal is flourishing the economy. I'm a fiscal conservative, and I'm going to be a hawk watching every dollar, every contract signed up by the All Boys Club in the city of Oceanside. And the third floor, people making $200,000, $300,000 under my watch, they will be gone. $4 million saving right there. Thank you very much.
Okay. So Rocky, how to recover from the effect of the pandemic?
Sure, and I'm going to refer just to the general fund because everyone here knows that there were probably about 8 different funds that we have in this city that goes on, water district, light district, everything else. But the general fund's $170 million. If you look at what January, what our budget was, we cut $9.8 million off. 8.8 of it was just hard cuts. We had $1 million reserve. Where would you just look at it? Obviously, you do a hiring freeze. I think you look at long-term capital investments you had and maybe stop those and keep them to give you some flesh. But it's a complex item, and having ran $300 million budget in the state and a $500 million for the Marine Corps, I know how to handle a budget.
Are you confident that the city's budget is as tightly run as it should be, Rob?
I think we have to start looking at it because of the structure of Oceanside's budget. There were places where we had a floor due to our property tax, I believe it's about 50% of our budget. But in the other areas, again, I agree with some of my opponents that the hiring freeze sets it in. But one of the things we also need to, as mayor, I will dig into, actually, you have to spur and be the spokesperson about how, as we return safely, ensuring that the businesses have the support they need. So there needs to be more investment in not just the small businesses, but the micro businesses, less than 20 employees, the mom and pop shop, the restaurants, to get that sales tax going so that people start feeling good about Oceanside again. So with regard to the budget, on the Measure X committee, we did look at some of the areas. So we are in a good place. I don't necessarily believe that the cuts have to be there, but we need to look at how we outreach grants and support to bring other things in to bring us back to the upper level of profitability in the city.
Thank you. Ruben, would you do anything different about the city budget?
Sure. I would say, again, we do need to evaluate everything. I'm a small business owner myself, so I'm used to looking at, all the fine lines. And I think that right now the biggest thing that I see is that the police department budget overtime is insane. So just take a look at that. We can, if we're smart about this and we want to make sure that they're not, doing a bunch of overtime, then we probably need to figure that particular issue out. Also, I think that moving the HOT team again and the PERT team to the fire department is going to save us that money in overtime, which is good. Also, I think that we need to start making money for Oceanside, and so I'd like to see that done. We need to cut the red tape for these businesses during COVID. We've lost a lot. We need eviction protection for our local businesses. And I would say regular forums with businesses so that we can help support them in what they're doing.
That's good.
Okay, yeah.
Jack, the Measure M, which is also on the ballot, would tax retailers, manufacturers, and distributors, cultivators of marijuana. There are estimates that it could raise as much as $2 million a year in revenue for the city. Do you support, oppose, or and why?
I believe that that marijuana is the next pandemic for young people. It's been around a long time. No amount of money is worth it to train these children to be using marijuana. I'm not interested in the tax. I'm not interested in the business. It is a detriment to our children.
Okay, Esther?
Thank you. Cannabis has been legalized. We have businesses here in Oceanside, and it's going to be draining our, once it's actually going, the businesses are going, will be impacting our public safety and our general fund. So it makes a lot of sense to be able to have a tax on this business. It is actually set at the lowest end. It's 3% to 6%. It's actually quite low. So this is something that, in fact, what I would like to see, because it basically talks about these funds going back into the general fund. It needs to be reinvested in those communities that have suffered because of the criminalization of cannabis. So what I envision and what I'm hoping, I'm urging the public to do is vote yes on Measure M, because we need those funds to invest in our communities, invest in our youth, and education, and also economic development.
Thank you.
Lou?
Absolutely yes. I mean, that's why we legalized it in the first place. One, it has tremendous health benefits. Two, you get the money from it, rather than people just peddling on the side of the streets and going to jail, which is actually sucking more money out of the economy. So yes, the health benefits, we get the tax money, and we can use that money to help stop any kind of deficits we have in the budget and use that money to actually make Oceanside better. I'm all for it.
Okay, Fabio?
I say yes. I'm a fiscal conservative. If we are so naive that after COVID-19 we're going to be money flowing to the city, forget about that. So we need to get all the tax that we can. But my goal is reduce taxes. My goal is flourishing the economy. And So we need to be open. If some people are doing bad stuff in the street nobody knows, we better know who's selling what. We can track it, we can control it, we can punish to the bad doer. And one bad apple is not going to need to ruin all the apples.
Okay.
Thank you.
Rocky.
You know, I've given up this whole issue about marijuana and it's bad or good or whatever because it's been voted by on the community and it's here. But I'm not for taxes. And one of the things I think is if you start putting in taxes, you're raising the price of something, then there's going to be an underground market which is going to go out there and even cause more problems. And so I'm the guy that doesn't have a problem with if they want to smoke, do it on their own in a safe way, but I'm not for taxes.
Okay. Rob?
I do not support that measure for a few reasons. The complications associated with it is that the way it's structured, it would appear that it was put there so that I really want to harm the industry. Right now in Oceanside, it's just medical. So this tax allows them to tax the medical piece at every level. And typically when people who are using this are trying not to use prescription medications, and it actually has worked. As I talked to a veteran just the other day, and it helps him with his PTSD. So it adds the extra taxes. What I do believe, though, is that if it's been legalized, and so we need to take a look at this and how we want to have it in Oceanside so that we do it so that it is safe and we have higher end places for it as opposed to just highly taxing it all the way through the process. Now the people who are using it for medical are going to have to pay more, and I don't agree with that.
Okay. Ruben?
So I think that something like this is definitely going to help to increase our revenue that we need into the city, especially with COVID going on right now. I think I look at this kind of like there is a market price. So if you remember what happened with Napster when they had illegal music streaming, and then we eventually started charging, these companies started charging $1 a song, and then people said, okay, well, I guess I could pay the $1. So I think that there's definitely a market balance there, and we need to find what that is to prevent the illegal activity that's occurring, because that's, to me, it's a public safety issue, and I want to make sure that we're keeping our community safe. And by doing that, we've got to be reasonable with that tax.
Okay. Fernando?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because it's already here. It's been legalized. It's here. I'm not a person to start using city resources to fight something that's already been legalized. I'm not a user. I've never used it. I don't condone its use. However, that's what the people voted. That's what the people want. My only concerns right now are its regulation. If it has to be properly regulated and properly taxed so that it doesn't create a hole in the market, a void in the market. Because if it's overly taxed, then you create a black market, and you don't want that. You want to create some sort of revenue for the city so that its regulations can be enacted and implemented, such as treating it just as a tobacco product, regulated to people, if it's not medical, regulated to people over 18 or 21, whatever the voters decide. 2, that it's not sold near schools. 3, that it's used as any substance for driving. You get caught driving under the influence, you're still driving under the influence. So those are my concerns regarding that issue.
Okay. Alison?
Okay, so now we have an opportunity for each of you to pose one question to one other candidate. And when you ask that question, keep your question fairly short, and they'll have about 30 seconds to a minute to answer it. And I believe, Esther, you're the first one to start. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I'll ask Mr. Howard, why did you change your mind about Measure L? When you refused to sign the petition, you basically said that you supported the project. So why did you change your position, and what can you say to have the public believe that when you say something, you're going to actually mean it?
And that's North River Farms you're referring to, correct?
What was that?
That's North River Farms that
Yes.
you're correcting? Okay.
Well, first of all, I haven't changed my mind, and when I'm asked to sign petitions, one of the problems with our proposition mode is people stick something in and have you sign it and you don't know what it is. And so I challenge people when they do that, we're gonna go back and look at it. I haven't changed my mind. What I have done is gone and researched that. I talked to the developer, I talked to the individuals, I talked to the fire department, and so no, I haven't changed my mind. The problem is this rumor continues to be spread, and I will tell you, I'm voting no on L, but my issues are around safety, and we need to get to the details instead of using these as wedge issues to have people fighting when we need to be planning our city, coming together and figuring out how to do housing in a safe, equitable manner where we can provide housing for people in Oceanside.
Right. Lou, do you have a question for someone?
Yeah, I think so. I'll make it a good question. My question's for Ruben, my boy Ruben over here. You have prior fire experience and everything like that. How do you think Oceanside rates on fire safety overall throughout the whole city, and like what measures do you think we could take to make it better?
I appreciate that question. So I've actually been out with the firefighters, and I've rode with them and talked to them about some of the issues that they're experiencing. And right now their pay is really low, and so it's concerning because we lose people, we lose veteran staff, we've lost captains to Orange County, we've lost, really good people in our community, and I think to other departments, and I think that, we need to fund them properly so that we don't lose them in their experience. And again, I think as far as where it ranks, I think it does pretty well, but I think we could do a lot better. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, man.
Fabio, is there anyone you would like to ask a question?
Yeah, I got a question that is bothering in my mind from the beginning of this campaign, and it's going to the current elected officials. Why they want to run for mayor promising that I will do this, I will do that, I will do this, when you got pretty much like 20 years to demonstrate what you did?
I think that's a valid question. We can set it to both Jack and Esther. Jack, would you like to tackle it first?
Is that how it's going to go? We can ask a question that everybody
In this
needs to
case,
answer?
there's no way to split the baby, so I think the fairest way to do it is...
Ask him to direct it to one or the other.
well,
They can share the time.
I'm the moderator,
20
and I
seconds.
would like to hear the answer from both of you. So
Thank you.
in this case, Jack, go for it.
The answer for me is look at what Oceanside has become in the last 20 years. Oceanside is thriving. It was on a huge uptick before this pandemic. That is the reason I want to continue for the next 4 years, and I'm also not running from a safe seat.
Thank you, Esther.
Thank you, Fabio, for the question.
Love
I
you,
actually
Esther.
really love that question. I have actually been one out of the 5. So I have really pushed hard on some issues. Sometimes I won, sometimes I lost. And so it's time for a leader who's actually going to push the things that we need to get done. Homelessness, I cannot believe we don't even have one single shelter in the largest city in North County that has the most homeless. We are dragging our feet. There are things that we're dragging our feet on, the Climate Action Plan, on CCE. I mean, there are things we have to have the mayor as the leader to finally get going for the future, for our youth, who are our future.
Thank you. Rocky,
Good question.
would you like to ask a question?
Sure, I'll ask Councilmember Feller. What book are you currently reading now?
James Patterson. I wasn't expecting that question. So he's the author.
That's good enough. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Interesting question.
Okay, so Rob, do you have a question for somebody?
Well, my question, again, I know we said one individual, but I just, a yes or no, regardless of the outcome of this race, would each candidate commit to continuing to work together to bring consensus so that we can continue to move Oceanside forward?
Okay, so we can't go that way.
All right, how
You're going
about-
to have to pick somebody.
Well, we had a question for the current council members. Can we at least do the non-elected officials, which excludes you, Rocky, because you are
Okay, so
elected.
they're going to have to be very short answers.
Yes, no.
Okay, but we do, I think, have time for this. So you want the non-council members to say how they're going to commit to working together?
Just yes or no if you're committed to continue to work with the rest of us in the city to help move Oceanside forward. I'm sorry if it was confusing.
But you just want it to be a yes or no. Take a couple of words. URIDEL?
Yes.
Yes, I will stand with you.
All right.
Fabio?
Yes, I think we got a lot of high IQ here, and we'd be ashamed not to be using of that.
Okay, thank
And,
you. Thank you very much.
okay.
Rocky, what's your response to that?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Okay. And then we've got Ruben.
Yes, I'm committed to getting everybody together to work together.
We'll hold you to this if you get elected, guys. Fernando?
Yes, I think this is great because whoever wins, there's all of us to go in and support or put pressure or some sort of aid or assist in helping the community. So whoever wins, wins. The community wins.
Thank you. All right. So Ruben, you have a chance to ask a question.
Yes, I have a question for Rocky Chavez. So I have major love for Oceanside, and I do because I love this city, I love the diversity in the city. I've got 3 kids. I plan on spending the rest of my life here. Our beach city, our great community. And what I want to know from you, Rocky, is what's your major love for Oceanside?
Probably the faith. You know, Oceanside has an interesting history in the sense that we started with the Mission San Luis Rey. You know, we have an abbey overlooking the city, which very few people know about it. And you also have a number of community churches around the city. So I would say what really strikes me a lot is the faith of Oceanside.
Okay, thank you. Fernando, do you have a question?
Yes, well, this goes for the elected, seated people. Again, from an immigrant perspective, a Latino, I want to know more about what are you going to do or what have you done to create the bridge of trust with the whole Black Lives Matter movement between the community and the police, because the police, like I said, are the face of the city in the community with the community policing. What are your thoughts on that, and what do you plan, if you win, what do you plan on doing to create that bridge of trust?
Well, if I can start, I was actually born and raised in Oceanside. My dad grew up in Oceanside, and I ended up living and growing up in the barrio, the same barrio that my dad grew up. I was a daughter of an immigrant, so my first language was Spanish. And when I was growing up in the East Side, it was very diverse. I did not realize it at the time, but it was because of redlining. So, folks couldn't even buy anywhere else if you had any shade of color. So it has been actually my lifelong commitment for change to address systemic racism. So I have been doing that from the time that I turned 18 and I could volunteer for the United Farm Workers or for community organizing. And I have been doing that. I was a deputy public defender for 20 years. And of course, most of my clients were people of color.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Thank you, great. Jack, do you have a response?
I would just answer that you really need to look at my family. My 3 daughters are white, but we have a black son-in-law and a Samoan son-in-law and a part Filipino son-in-law, and they're mixed races. We even have great-grandchildren that are part Hispanic. So my systemic racism isn't there. We have discussions continually about it in our family, and I don't have a bone in my body that believes that I'm a racist.
Thank you, Jack.
If I may clarify.
I'm sorry, I wish we all want to have follow-up questions. That was a great question. Thank you for the question. So I believe that, Jack, you're the last one to ask somebody on the panel.
Am I last?
Yep.
Yes.
And then we go home?
Close.
We have a few more questions for you, but you're the last one to ask one of your colleagues.
I did not support marijuana from the beginning, and I was accompanied by that from Councilmember Sanchez, and I've never heard why she went over heels for marijuana after the beginnings.
you want to respond to that, Esther, please?
So when cannabis was legalized, I was hoping that we would be approaching the issue as a city, as a community, and it would be via staff and having meetings and coming up with what the community wanted to have in Oceanside in terms of a cannabis business. We actually ended up having 2 council members who created a committee, which meant that other council members couldn't attend. They basically just allowed it for cannabis experts. So teachers teachers didn't go, parents didn't go, students weren't able to go. And so for me, that was not a good process. The rest of the council, including you, Jack, didn't even hear about it till, what was it, December 20th? Just before Christmas, that we had a hearing, and we had, 4 or 5 minutes to decide something that other 2 council members had decided for, 8 months, 12 months. So for me, it has been about listening to the community and seeing what we can do in terms of a balance.
Thank you.
As I understand, we've got about 10 minutes left, so I want to do a couple real quick questions. First one on term limits, which is also on the ballot. Basically, all I'd like to know is a yes or a no. Are you for the term limit measure or against it? Lou?
For term limits.
Okay. Fabio?
Absolutely. Term limits.
Okay.
Yes on term limits.
Rob?
Yes.
Ruben?
Yes, it doesn't go far enough.
Fernando?
Yes.
Yes.
Jack? Esther?
Yes.
Unanimity.
Okay. Don't you love these quick ones? So then, climate change. The city's vulnerability assessment report has assessed that probably by 2040, the Strand and the Harbour Drive will flood regularly due to sea level rise, and our beaches will be sadly depleted, not to mention the risk of fires. What can a city do about climate change? I believe, Lou, you're the start at this point.
Probably bring in a climate change expert. Be the first thing I would do. Someone that knows how to address these issues and can solve them.
Okay. Thank you. Fabio?
Well, climate change is based on science, and as a city, we need to be proactive. We need to implement corridors for electric cars. We need to allow people to share rides. We need to include bicycle rides. And the city have to take charge and buy their own drag machine and drag their own sand, because sand is not going to give you nothing. We need to take initiative. I'm a contractor and I'm a doer. Enough of I will see, somebody will do. Enough of that petty talk.
Thank you,
Doers.
Fabio. Rocky?
Yes. Well, climate change is a real serious issue. And in fact, earlier today, I had a meeting with the chair of the Energy Commission for the state of California, David Oceanside, plus the commanding general of MCI West and the admiral for Southwest for the Navy. And it dealt all about energy and climate change. And what the Department of Defense is doing heavily is looking at investing in the sustainable, affordable energy sources that they can reduce the load on California so that we don't have rolling blackouts.
What can a
We can
city
get
do?
involved with them on that. I think the city can also look at their ordinances, how we build. I think the city should also become tree friendly, more trees out there, clean the environment. And so those are the things I think the city can actively work on with the military, with trees, with the development of our houses.
Thanks, Rocky. Rob?
There's not a whole lot of time to get into this, but I'll try to be quick. One, we should change our thinking on how we address climate. Our climate action plan is really focused on our footprint. We need to expand it to be the leader for the city. We can start to look at weatherization of homes. Why is that important? That allows us job training for people in our community so that we now are working towards it. That brings the energy use down. We should also be looking at SDG&E. Once the 5 cities that are going into their CCA, what's going to happen is that's 50% of SDG&E's customers. We shouldn't wait to figure out what's going to happen with us. We should make a decision on how we want to address that issue. So again, we need to go all in on it, but do it from an economic and equity perspective.
Thank you. Ruben?
So I think we actually need to put our climate action plan into place. We have a plan, but we haven't really taken any steps towards that plan. We also need to encourage walking more. We need to encourage biking more. and not just bike lanes that are right next to cars that are driving, but green spaces, places for people to visit on a regular basis. I think that would be a lot of fun for people. And also solar energy increases incentives for that as much as possible, and more green spaces. I think that would be really good for us.
Okay, Fernando.
Yeah, it goes along the line of the same thing. We need to work on, besides the climate action plan, is zero emissions goals for the cities, for the various pieces of infrastructure, from homes to office space and different businesses. Besides electric vehicles and all that technology stuff, it's great. However, we need to also start looking at how do we reduce emissions from carbon emission vehicles. And everywhere we go, like I said, California is it's a car culture. We need to start changing that culture to incentivize people to get out and use public transportation, walk, etc.
Thank you. Jack, is there anything more you'd like to see the city do about climate change?
Well, we do have a plan in place, but it's comprehensive, and I think most of what I would like to see is the saving the sand that is the barricade between the ocean and our strand. It will take things like groins, jetties, and probably even some pumping. So as far as that facet of it, that's what I would like to see.
Okay, thank you. And so Esther, climate change and sea level rise.
Climate change is a global issue, and California, here in the United States, California has really been the leader in the states. And for us in Oceanside, we can do our part by strengthening and implementing our climate action plan, getting quickly on board with CCE, community choice energy, and choosing sustainable energy versus any other kind of energy. Get into the organics recycling, and basically envision a new economic future for Oceanside, talking about green jobs, and making sure that we can do these jobs here. And as to sea level rise, basically, we have all these cities to the south of us. We can't do anything hard structures like groins. It'll never be approved, but we can do soft structures.
Thank you.
Okay, we're almost out of time, so if you would each give us very brief closing remarks, starting with you, Esther.
Thank you, and thank you for holding this. I have a passion for Oceanside. I have always been working with the community on trying to improve things, especially for the east side. That's really been the base, because that has been where a lot of the crime has taken place, east side and the Crown Heights area and the Backgate area. So from the time that I got on the council, I've worked on these issues, on housing, all the really, really tough issues, right? But now we need leadership. We need a new mayor who is actually going to take us to the next step, because we have all these things that we have to do. We have to address our homelessness, and we have to do it now. So my name is Esther Sanchez, Councilmember Sanchez, and I'm running to be your new mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. Jack.
Thank you. I've been here 33 years. I thank the community for the time on this city council. If you were here in the 60s and 80s and 90s, Oceanside is a completely different place than those years. Our safety is one of the things that we can brag about most here in this city. I want it known that government is not always the solution, and we can get a lot of help, and I would just say that everything takes 3 votes. It's not a mayor that's going to get everything done.
Thank you, Jack. Fernando.
Hi, I'm Fernando GARCIA. I'm running for mayor. The reason I'm running for mayor is because I could have retired anywhere in the world. I retired from the Marine Corps. I decided to retire here in Oceanside because I really like it here. The community, it's amazing. All the things to do here in Oceanside, the proximity to so much stuff, beaches, trails, hiking, etc., the ocean. And the reason I'm running for mayor is because No River Farms, that really upset me, because I felt as though city council did not listen to the voters. So I'm here to listen to the voters and do their will.
Thank you. Ruben.
Name's Ruben Major, running for mayor here in Oceanside. I think right now that we're struggling for the heart of our community. I'm a paramedic. I love helping people out. I'm hoping to bring that same attitude to government here. And as a healthcare professional, I think that's really important to have somebody at the helm that understands COVID like nobody else can. I'm a new face. I haven't been around for decades. I think that makes a difference. Also, when COVID happened, we stopped asking for donations because we know that you're struggling, and we're doing everything that we can to make it better for you. But I would say the biggest thing is there's dirty money in politics, and that's what I've seen running, and I'll do everything that I possibly can to root out as much corruption as I can find.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruben. Rob.
Yes, I want to thank KOCT for their efforts. I want to thank all of my opponents who are here today, because we need to continue to have these discussions. I am running because I know there are good people. I really do believe that. But there are times, after a certain amount of time, you need someone who is willing to bring that team together, because we have challenges that have changed over the last 30 years. And as a resident of Oceanside for over 30 years, I'm not going anyplace. And I want to lead by listening and consensus building, taking my expertise and putting it into play to make Oceanside as good as it can be. Rob Howard, candidate for Oceanside mayor.
Thank you. Rocky?
Yes, I would like to thank everybody here for showing up for this event. I'd like to thank you, the voter. If you sat there for 90 minutes to watch this, thank you very much. You know, the three big things I think the city is going to be facing, we got to get our business and our economy going back with the COVID environment. It's not going to go away in November. It's going to be around for a while. We're going to have to deal with it. Energy. Energy drives the economy. It affects everybody's bills every month. We need to have somebody who understands what's going on there. I mentioned it earlier about some of my interactions. And a new area, no one talked about yet, education. We used to work on that. So my name's Rocky Chavez. I have experience at the federal, state, and local level. I ask for your vote.
Thank you. Fabio.
Well, don't even think to donate money to my campaign, because I'm not for sale. I want to stop the old boys club mentality running the city. No more pay to play. I want to cut the red tape. I want to flourish the economy. And for example, room additions and ADUs, one day, $100. That's it. You got a permit. I'm going to be tough on crime, when I'm going to be also accountable to the city. And I want to make it simple. 12 people to vote, keep it simple. Just Fabio. That's the only thing that you need to remember. Thank you.
Thank you. Lou?
Look, it's simple. There's a lot of people here, and they all have great ideas, and they all want to make Oceanside better. But let me tell you something that I'm going to do for Oceanside to make it better. I'm not going to abandon the small business community. I was arrested for opening my business during COVID-19. I had to fight for my business, and I felt completely alone and left by our local government, by our county government, our state government. There's a lot of businesses out there that feel the same exact way I do, and I will fight for you, and I'll stand up for you as mayor. I'll take it on the chin for you.
Thank you very much. Alison?
Okay, I'd just like to thank all of you for throwing your hat in the ring and running for public office. I think it's great that we have such a lot of enthusiasm for the position of mayor in Oceanside. I'd also like to thank the Veterans Association of North County for letting us use their very beautiful facilities here on Mission Avenue for this broadcast. And I want to tell all of our viewers that it's a really good idea to go to KOCT.org and check out all of the candidates' statements there, as well as you can rewatch this broadcast anytime you like. Remember to vote. As a result of there being so many candidates, the person who wins will probably win by just a few votes, so every vote will count, and yours will count. I'm Alison St. John, along with Kent Davy, and we thank you very much for watching this KOCT Special 2020 Election Forum.